Thank you for your foot. Good job.
Okay, so I think we're hearing you now. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
So
that's better.
Better with the softness or no?
Am I still soft?
we're good.
They said
Okay.
we're good.
Yeah, we're good, yeah.
So my name is Monica, and I blog at My Life is a Journey. I am the mom of 3 rescue dogs, and I really enjoy watching the previous segment where you were teaching us how to train the dogs. The question that I have for you is, during the movie, besides the treat, because every time that the dog does a treat, you give them a treat.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, she's talking right now. Sorry about that.
No problem. So besides the treats and the click, what other tools do you use during the movie so they don't have that many treats when they are filming?
I heard most of that. So you said besides treats, what other tools do we use? Is that what your question was?
Yes, correct.
Basically what you do is, there's a lot of specific behaviors a dog in a movie has to learn. Obviously because they have to learn how to hit a mark. They have to learn to stay, of course, and sit. But more importantly than that, they have to really be able to bond with the actor that they're working with, the actors. For it to be really a legitimate, portrayal of dog owner. And Gabriel in this movie was really, really, really wonderful. And he's such a smart young man, and he's also an animal lover. So they spent a lot of time together. And the first thing I told Gabriel was, listen, I've done all the legwork with, the dog. The dogs, we train them to do all the, hit their marks and do all the movie stuff. But really, to get that emotional performance and that connection, I kind of told Gabriel that he had to learn to be a trainer, and it was also his dog, So that was, for me, the most important thing is, just getting pet and in between takes, loving and hanging out with the actors and getting loved on. And, the type of training we do, we don't just, they don't just go on the film, on the set and film and then go back to their cages. And we sit on set and we bond with them and we lay with them. And the actors do the same thing. The actors are allowed to play with them and touch them. There are some animal trainers who are very the dogs are more robotic, but with our dogs, we're more organic. And so we really want to have that connection with the actors. We don't want the dogs looking at the trainers off screen. That's really important to me. So, really it's just about relationships. And we teach all the dogs, like I said, the foundation training, but the actors have to put in a lot of work to be able to have that authentic connection. And that's what I think worked really well in this film, is that, all the actors were really, really dog friendly. And, we're willing to put the time and the effort to bond with the dogs in the movie. So really it's treats, toys, and affection are the 3 main. Dogs are simple, like Henry says, those are the 3 things that motivate them. And that's pretty much what we used in the film. Thank you for your question.
Okay, Cadence, you're up next.
Okay, my name is Cadence Graber. I'm from Kids First, and my question is, what was the hardest part about training the dog that plays Henry?
Oh, hi. Your question is a really good question. So the hardest part about training Henry, there are a lot of challenging things in any time you have a dog that plays the lead role in the movie. These dogs are very high energy, so JC, who is the main Henry in the film, sometimes it's hard to get their attention and focus. And when a dog's in a lead role and in almost every scene, you have to keep it really fun for them to motivate them to do something over and over again. So we have to do multiple takes, and sometimes the dogs get bored and they're like, why are we doing this 5 or 6 times in a row? So that becomes challenging on set. And as an animal trainer, it's my job and my team's job to motivate the dogs and keep it fun for them and make it a game. So some of the challenges we had were just, sometimes long days on set and the dogs being in a lot of scenes and they get bored or tired. We filmed this movie in New Orleans. So New Orleans, I know I'm not saying that the right way, but, and the climate is different there. It's really hot. So sometimes that was challenging because, it's very humid, obviously, and the dogs weren't used to that kind of weather. So I was really protective of them and making sure that they always had an air-conditioned trailer. They always had water on set. The sets were air-conditioned because they just got really hot, and that humidity. Those were really our biggest challenges were, the long days and the heat in New Orleans. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
When do you know I'm sorry, I'm Victoria Infante from Ser Mamá Latina.
Hi.
When do you know that a dog is not more suitable for making movies?
Oh, I love that question. Thank you. So how when a dog is suitable for making movies? I love that question because, any animal really has the potential, but it really does take a special dog to be a movie star, essentially. I was seeing earlier, we had 3 Henrys in the film, but really this dog right here, this is JC. She played, she is a girl who played a boy, was really our lead dog because she just had that really standout personality and temperament. She's really outgoing, really friendly, really food motivated. She loves people. It's really important for dogs to work as actor dogs that they're not afraid of, people or easily scared by, sounds. They have to be really confident because, on set when you're around a lot of equipment and people moving, and you don't want a dog to be fearful. Sometimes, a lot of the dogs we rescue from shelters or various situations and we train them for movie work. But if they've had a really bad past, it's really hard to, you can't ever force them to perform. You always want them to enjoy being there, and you don't want them to be afraid of anything. So sometimes, animal actors if they don't like it, we certainly would never make them do it. So they just have to want to be, interested in being trained, interested in eating treats, interested in learning new tricks. And that's how we know if a dog's going to be a good movie dog, if they have that really outgoing personality, and are just really enthusiastic and friendly dogs. That makes the best type of movie dog. Thank you very much for your question.
Shelby?
Yes, hi. How do you help support the dogs after they become bonded with the actors when the movie's over?
Oh, wow, Shelby. That is actually a really good question. So let me think about that for a second. So after the movie is over, obviously, we all go our separate ways. Sometimes when I've worked on movies, the child actors, if we're working with a younger child actor, they do really get bonded to the dogs, especially spending months and months with them, and they stay in touch with us. I have like a horse ranch, and that's where Henry lives, and I make it so where they could come visit anytime, or if they want us to come visit them. I love to continue that relationship, but realistically, that doesn't happen very often. Because they go on to do another project and we go on to do another project. So I've never seen any ill effects of the animal. The amazing things about dogs, as we know, is they're just so they could bond to multiple people, and because they're so bonded to both the actors on the set and also the trainers, at least after the film project ends, they're going home with their trainers, and they're going home to their, where they live and with their other dog friends. And so she didn't have any of the Henrys on this project didn't have any, withdrawals to say. But I know that if we were to reunite Gabriel and any of the Henrys, JC, for example, she would be really excited to see him. And I think she would definitely remember him, of course, and just be really happy. But yeah, unfortunately, usually we all go our separate ways, sadly. Thank you for your question.
Monica, Monica?
Hey, hi, I'm Monica from Popcorn Reviews. Thank you so much, Sarah, for taking the time. I'm just curious, you mentioned there's multiple dogs that played Henry. How do you find dogs that are all actor dogs that all look similar to each other? Because I could never tell that it was a different dog on screen the whole movie.
Oh my God, I love your question. Hi. It's a great question. So I have all these thoughts racing through my mind. So going back, I was talking earlier about, I personally am really into rescuing, and I volunteer for rescues, and I foster dogs. So that's always my go-to. But whenever a dog is doing a movie, you have to have, I think, a minimum of 3 is really any lead role. You have to have at least 3 dogs that look alike, because obviously, sometimes they get tired, or one dog is better than, doing something than another dog. So in this movie, I had known Gil for many, many years. And he really wanted a specific look. Like, he came to me, we had worked on another project together, and he wanted, he actually specifically said he wanted either a golden doodle or a labradoodle. And I didn't have that breed at the time. And, I searched the rescues and wasn't able to find any through rescue. I tried really hard, but I wasn't able to find the specific color and the specific look that Gil requested for the role of Henry. So I did end up adopting these dogs through breeders, for example, with JC, who played the lead Henry, her sister, Jovi, was one of the dogs we used, and she, they look identical. You can't even tell them apart. And Jovi was used for Jovi is just like pure action dog. And she was used for this scene where she's dancing on her hind legs and doing, a lot of the running shots that you see where they're running through, going to save the day to rescue Oliver. So Jovi was used for a lot of those, for mostly those scenes. Then we had a third dog named Jedi. And Jedi was from the Midwest, and I adopted him. He was a young male dog, and he was almost a puppy. I think he was only 9 months old when we did this movie, and we only used him for a couple scenes. He was used, there's a scene where, in the very beginning of the film where Oliver, he has all these amazing little scientific things that he comes up with, and there's a thing where Henry goes and gets the ball and it activates the water. So we used Jedi for that scene. and a couple other scenes, but mostly I'd say that gosh, at least 85–90% of the film was JC, this dog here. And one of the secrets that we have for matching the dogs closely when they're, say they're not related, we actually do, there's an animal colorist in the film industry who colors the dogs to look alike. So say if one's a little darker brown or a little, the shade's a little different, she uses all natural, 100% chemical-free, hemp-based, food coloring type things. And we did use her for this project. So where we actually, went to her and they were all colored a little bit, just very lightly to be the same shade of brown that you see in the film. If you kind of look at JC now, she's a little bit lighter. That's because she just from the sun, it's kind of lightened her hair a little, so she was a little darker chocolate in the movie. So that's one of the secrets that we use for matching dogs, is that we, obviously we get dogs that are the same breed, and sometimes they're related, sometimes they're not, but we sometimes use a little makeup with them behind the scenes. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think you're up next.
Hi, my name is Keegan Burgess. I'm from Method LA. My mom, Kate. Since we're spending more time at home with our pets, can you recommend any fun brain games for dogs?
I'm so sorry, I didn't hear that all the way. Can you speak up just a little? I didn't hear what you fully said.
Since we're spending more time at home with our pets, can you recommend any fun brain games for dogs?
Yes, I think I heard you. So you said, since we're spending a lot of time at home, can I recommend any games with your dog? Is that what you asked? Games?
Yeah, like brain games.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So what I was saying before, I don't know if you saw earlier, there's a lot of really cool training tutorials on YouTube. I love all the young trainers these days that are they teach you step by step how to train dogs. I actually watch a lot of them, and I'm so inspired by a lot of the YouTube videos. But one of the things I was thinking would be really fun would be to do a TikTok video with your dog. And teach it, there's a couple ideas I had, either teach it, do something like showing your dog's board at home. I saw one on Instagram that was so cute that I want to do with my dogs, where it's the song Bored in the House, and just showing the dog sleeping, or there's rolls of toilet paper on the dog's legs. It was just really cute. I think it was a dog, I forget the dog's name, but just showing the dog is bored at home, little TikTok videos. Or you can do a video, film your dog, sleeping, and then I was saying, you can zoom into the eyeball and show what your dog would be dreaming about, in video, your dog running in a field or playing with the ball or eating snacks, or just some fun stuff like that. If you were to video or interpret, if you were able to think like a dog, what your dog would be thinking about or dreaming about. To train your dog to do those things, I was showing some tools we use, I don't know if you can see me or this, but this is a little squeaky. So we use that to get their attention or to make them look excited. I use clickers for training them to do new things, teaching them to lie on their side to make them look like they're sleeping, or teaching them to lower their head. We call it a head down. And then using that clicker to bridge the behavior. And dogs, if you do training sessions, if you do 5 minutes per training session, it's amazing how fast dogs learn once they realize, oh, the clicker means I get a treat. And you repeat that behavior over and over again. It's really fun to train dogs at home. So I highly recommend doing, short training sessions with your dogs at home and teaching them some fun tricks, and I love clickers because it's positive, positive reinforcement is the type of training we use. And so, and most dogs like getting treats. Some dogs prefer affection and some dogs prefer getting toys as reinforcements or rewards. So you can use all those things to train your dogs at home. And then you can take, once you do, teach them to do a couple things, then just do like little fun, videos of them and post them on Instagram or TikTok. And it's fun to see that, I think it would be cool to do something like that and then hashtag it with Think Like a Dog, and I'll look them up and check out your videos. Thank you for your question.
Great. Nicole Lucci?
Hi, Sarah. This is Nicole Mucci from Multicultural Maven. I just wanted to ask you, I know you started doing this in 1996 with Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And so I was just curious how you got started, kind of animal training, like what led you into that profession?
Hi, I love that question. Thank you for asking that. So yeah, I did originally work on Sabrina the Teenage Witch. That was back in the day. I wasn't really an official animal trainer then. I was more like an intern animal trainer. And that was when I was really interested in becoming an animal trainer. And I started working for a company that did that show. And it was really cool being on that set and seeing them work the black cats and the other animals that they had on that show, and really learning from other trainers and watching them. But what made me want to become an animal trainer is I moved to Los Angeles, and I think gosh, I don't even remember. It was a long time ago, and 20 years ago, and I wanted to work behind the scenes. I loved, I just was always in love with movie making, and I wanted to work in some capacity, but I didn't know at the time when I moved to Los Angeles that I wanted to be an animal trainer. Although I was a lifelong animal lover, I loved animals and always had pets and everything. I had every kind of animal as a pet growing up as a little kid. And I moved to Los Angeles and I worked on movies as a production assistant for a couple of years. And I just learned like how to work on set and what everyone's job was. And one day I was working on the movie The Matrix 2. And there was some trained crows for a scene. And I remember, having, as a production assistant, I had to go get the animal trainers, and they had these, the khaki pants on, and they had crates, and it was so professional. And these crows performed so beautifully and amazingly and hit their marks. And I was so fascinated with the science of it. I was like in love, and that was for me my light bulb moment of like, oh God, I have to do that for a living. How do I do that? So after that movie, I switched gears from being a production assistant and just started contacting animal training companies in Los Angeles and asked them if I could, volunteer for them and learn. And eventually, I started working for a company that did that, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and moved on to their ranch and started helping and feeding the dogs and training dogs that they had. And eventually, one of the dogs that I had adopted from the shelter, he became, I trained him, and he knew like 100 behaviors. And he was the first dog I ever trained, and he ended up working on lots and lots of things. He was so well trained. His name was Kuma. And he worked on over 100 projects in the 17 years that I had him. And eventually I started working for, my friend worked for the Hallmark Channel, and Kuma started working on various Hallmark movies. And I just, word of mouth, I just started getting calls from people who knew I had become an animal trainer. And eventually I started my own company. Just started working on movies and TV series, and then I got my own ranch and got now I have 16 dogs. So so that's it. Just kind of gradually happened, but I love the career. It's really, really fun. So I get to, I kind of combine both of my passions, which were working behind the scenes and animals. So it was like my two greatest passions, and it became my job. So it's really cool. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having us and for answering our questions. I'm really fascinated by what you do, and I would like to know. My blog is The Positive Mom. So, what are some positive things that we can learn from dogs or from thinking like a dog?
Hi, I love your question. Some positive things that you can learn from a dog. Wow, I mean, just their essence. Dogs are such beautiful creatures, as we all know. They're always, almost always like JC. She's always happy. JC's the dog who played the main Henry, and her tail's always wagging. She's always positive. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about dogs is, like the character Henry says, simple life, happy life, I think is one of the things Henry says along those lines is like, they're so much less complicated than human beings, essentially. And it doesn't take much to make a dog happy. Love, food, exercise, they're pretty simple. And I think we should follow, their lead sometimes. And sometimes humans are, very complex creatures. I can never train a human. I'll stick to the animals. But animals are honest, and they don't lie to you. They don't hurt your feelings. They just love you unconditionally. And I feel like we can all learn from them, and be inspired by dogs. I think that's why people love dogs so much, is because they're just always happy. They always make us happy. They never make us sad. So hopefully I answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Heather Lopez? There we go.
Hi. I think I'm the last one, right? Okay. So I don't have any dogs right now. I actually have scale babies.
You have, what is
scale
it?
Babies. Scale babies. I call them lizards. I have a bearded dragon and a turtle.
I love reptiles, just so you know. I love bearded dragons, so that's awesome.
Okay, so I guess mine is a little bit out of the ordinary. Can you train lizards? Can you train an animal other than a dog, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. So in my career, I have actually trained a lot of different species. I've never trained a lizard. There are specific animal trainers that like specialize in reptiles. I love snakes, and I love lizards, and I love everything. I've handled them before. So as far as training lizard goes, I think there are ways, anything that's food motivated, there are ways to pattern them to do specific things. So like if you need a lizard to do like an A to B, go from one place to another, you can probably use food reinforcement for that, as long as it's visual. A lot of reptiles, it's more of handling and placement. But yeah, I've trained, believe it or not, I've trained mice. I've trained mice to do a lot of really complex things. I had to train a mouse to wear a little backpack and run into a pizza box. I've had to train rats. Rats are incredibly smart. I actually really like rodents. It's like one of my favorite things to train, believe it or not. I've had to train geese before, to wear like a tutu and twirl. I've trained a lot of cats. Cats are very, very trainable. Cats are really fun to train, believe it or not. Really anything that like is food motivated is trainable. Birds, are very trainable. You know, you could teach them to fly to somebody or to fly to you on cue or to play dead, or, you know, I've trained chickens. I had to train a chicken to pull a light switch. You can even train chickens to hit like a mark because they could see different shapes and colors. So basically what, as a trainer, like, what you need to know is like what motivates it, and like you need to know about the species, like, you know, what they eat, what motivates it, what, you know, their instinct is going to be. And once you tap into that, then you start to, you know, play around with how do I get this animal to do this specific behavior on cue. So yeah, you can really pretty much train just about anything with snacks, good snacks, and the right motivation, you know, and it's just always having a lot of patience, Thank you for your question.
Those were great. We have one question from a blogger who is having some technical difficulties, and she wonders if you can elaborate a little bit more on how you establish that relationship between Henry and Gabriel. I know you addressed it earlier, but.
Yes. So your question is how did we establish the relationship between Gabriel and the dogs? And for me as a trainer, it's really, really important to tell the directors and the producers, you know, we have something before the movie ever starts filming called pre-production. And for me, it's really important to emphasize you know, them spending time together. And, you know, that's a challenging thing, believe it or not, when you are filming a movie, because there's so many things in pre-production that are happening. The actors are doing rehearsals with the director, they're and the other actors. The actors are going into wardrobe fittings, and they don't always remember that, you know, when they're working with an animal, it's really important to set aside as much time as possible to have the actors to interact with the dogs. Otherwise, you know, I've worked on a lot of projects where, you know, say they're lower budget and they're just, you know, there isn't enough time before the project starts to have that animal and that actor spend time together and get to know each other. Then it's never really about, you know, their bond on film. It's more about the trainers cueing the dogs to do that specific action offset, you know. And, you know, a lot of the time we could get away with it because, you know, as long as we line ourselves up in the right eye line position, sometimes you can't tell necessarily. But with this movie, I really, really, really emphasized to Gil and Andrew Lazar that, hey, we need to have as much time with Gabriel and Henry as possible. Because, you know, you know, it's his best friend in the movie. And so fortunately we were given, you know, time once Gabriel was cast in the film. And, you know, and we, you know, Gabriel, of course, is incredibly smart and super, you know, loves animals and just figured it out really quickly. And I taught Gabriel how I train dogs, you know, what the cues are, sit, stay, speak. You know, he had to give the dog treats, and he was really willing to do that. So it really paid off because, you know, and there's also moments in the movie that are just so organic and sweet. Like there's this one scene where they're in his bedroom together, and Oliver and Henry are, you know, they're on his bed, and like JC just like leaned in and gave him a kiss. And I was like, oh, and that wasn't us, you know, training the dog to do that, or you know, us telling the dog, you know, give him a kiss. It was just her doing that because she loves him, you know. It was really sweet. And those are the kind of moments we hope to achieve. You know, you want to have as much of that natural interaction as possible. And that's only achievable if the dog trusts the person they're working with. You know, they have to, it's just like a child actor essentially, and you know, like they have to know this isn't a stranger, this is somebody that cares for me and that I know. So it's really important ahead of time to give them that time to bond. And fortunately, we're given a little bit of time to have that happen. So it paid off, you know, because they really genuinely loved each other. So thank you for your question.
Wonderful. Hang tight, ladies. I'm going to let them know that we're ready here, and then they're going to switch the talent, and we'll be joined by Gil and Gabriel.